Welcome to Manifest with Melanie, the podcast that helps you activate your manifestation superpower and build the soul-aligned life and business you're meant for. I'm your host, Melanie Mishler, equal parts woo-woo, neuroscience, and strategy. And each week, I share proven tools and raw talk to help you step into your full potential life. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, love. Welcome back to the podcast and happy Thursday. Today, we're going to be diving into a powerful shift that, if I'm being honest, most people will never make this shift in their life. But when you do it, it changes everything. And this is what we're talking about: expecting the best and rehearsing for success. We're talking about deliberately imagining the best case scenario, not just as a nice idea, but as an actual practice in your daily life. Because here's what most of us don't realize. We're already expecting something. We're always expecting something, right? And we're always rehearsing something all day, every day. The only question is, what story are you expecting? What results are you expecting? And what are you rehearsing? Here's the thing. Most of us, we spend way more time than we realize just mentally repeating what isn't working in our life. And we think we're just stating the facts, right? We think that we're just looking out at reality and explaining what's actually happening. Like, the money's not here yet, or my business still isn't taking off, or I haven't met the right person yet. And when we do this, we think we're being honest, but really what we're doing is we're rehearsing. We're rehearsing struggle. We're rehearsing frustration. We're mentally, emotionally, and energetically, actually physically practicing the version of life that we don't want. And we're doing this on repeat all the time. Sometimes it's not that obvious, but sometimes it can be really obvious, right? Like when someone irritates the hell out of you and you just can't stop thinking about it, right? You might tell your partner, you vent to your best friend, maybe you even put it out on a Facebook group and you have people chime in. You replay the whole thing over and over in your head like it's a bad soap opera, one of those horrible soap operas that you didn't even want to watch the first time. You didn't like it, but somehow you just keep watching the reruns, right? And even though you hate the way it ends, you just keep watching reruns over and over. That's what I mean by rehearsing. Sometimes we can even memorize the lines like we're about to perform the whole thing on stage. Like, can you believe what they said? Can you believe what they did? I know I used to have a tendency to do this a lot. But here's the thing, whether it's that annoying moment or a stress over money or disappointment in your business, whatever it is, the truth is that every thought you repeat, every story you retell, it's a kind of mental and emotional practice. And I'm going to say this again because this is really subtle, but is really fucking important. Every story you retell, every single time you retell that story, it's a mental and emotional practice. And most of us are practicing a story that's keeping us stuck. It's keeping us, maybe it's not even stuck, but it's just keeping us from our full potential. It's keeping us from reaching our goals, reaching what we desire. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because Andy's been gone for the last 3 weeks. He's been down in Belize working on the micro resort. And look, you all know I love my husband. I love when he's here, but I also really, really love when he goes away for a couple of weeks because here's the truth. We live together. We work together. We're basically around each other 24/7. And that's a lot of togetherness. That's like Olympic level togetherness. So when he leaves, there's this beautiful silence that washes over the house. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of melt into it because I love being alone. I love the quiet. And it gives me space to think, to like breathe, and to just kind of stretch out emotionally without anyone asking me like, where's my keys? Have you seen my keys? Have you seen this? Auntie loses a lot of stuff. And anyway, so I've also been swimming every day. And here's the thing, when I'm swimming, it's just me and my breath and my thoughts because I don't have any music going on. I don't have a true crime podcast whispering in my ear. It's just water, rhythm, and breath. And when life gets quiet like that, I do what I always do. I think a lot. And these past couple weeks, I've been thinking about how we think. I know that sounds funny, but that's what I've been thinking about. I've been thinking about how we think. how our minds work, about how our stories are looping all the time in the background unconsciously, and how many of us don't even realize that we're constantly rehearsing the worst case scenario. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be the worst case scenario, it could just be the current case scenario, which is keeping us stuck and creating more of the same over and over. And this really came full circle for me the other day because I was talking to a girlfriend and she was totally stuck in a loop. She was dealing with a lot of stuff going on and she had a lot of drama with her landlord at her commercial building. And she started telling me the story. And then about halfway through, she goes, "Oh, I'm just so tired. I don't even know if I can go into all the detail because I've like told 10 people and I talked about it in therapy and I'm just so tired. I'm so frustrated with the situation." And I stopped her and I said, "Exactly. Wait, you don't have to tell me the story. You're exhausted because you're rehearsing the story over and over." Because every time she retold the story, every single time, the drama, the irritation, the stuckness, she was reinforcing it energetically, emotionally, mentally, physically. She was reliving it every time and she was making it more real every single time she spoke about it. So I asked her, what if we walk through the best case scenario instead? What if we rehearsed that instead? So don't tell me the story, but tell me what the best case could be. And when I asked that, she paused and she said, "Well, honestly, that's probably not going to happen." And friend, here's the truth. If we don't create space for the good things to happen, then there's no space for the good things to happen. It's like trying to plant a tomato seed in a garden that's completely overgrown with weeds. There's just no space for it. And we all do this, love. I do it. My friend was doing it. I'm sure you do it also. Because most of us have a preset expectations about how things are probably going to go, right? And those expectations, they're usually shaped by our past, by what has happened, not by what's possible. But here's the thing, if we want to create something new, if we want to create something powerful and expansive and aligned in our life, we can't keep dragging the past into the future and calling it the truth. We have to start rehearsing the life we actually want. We have to start telling that story, not the one that we've lived and outgrown. And that brings me to one of my greatest inspirations, one of my favorite teachers, Viktor Frankl. If you've been in my world for a while, you might have heard me mention him. And if you haven't, then you really should go pick up his book, Man's Search for Meaning. I'll put a link to it in show notes so you can easily get it, but it's truly life changing. So, Frankl was a neurologist and a psychiatrist who he survived Auschwitz and he went on to develop a method of psychotherapy called logotherapy. And it's based on this idea that the primary human drive isn't pleasure or power, but it's meaning. And that even in the midst of unimaginable suffering, because he suffered a lot. But even in the midst of suffering, we can still find meaning and purpose. And that no matter what happens to us, no matter what's taken from us, we always have the freedom to choose how we'll respond. One of his famous quotes was that everything can be taken from man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. It means no matter what happens to us, no matter what state we're in, we always have the choice to choose our response, to choose our attitude. Back when I was studying somatic therapy like 20 years ago, I studied his work in depth and it really shaped how I see everything, especially my role as a healer or therapist or coach. And in one of his lectures, you can find it online. He was telling a story about how later on in life he was taking flying lessons and his instructor told him, "Look, if you want to fly from California to New York, you can't aim directly at New York. You have to aim north of it because crosswinds will push you off course. So if you aim straight at your goal, you're going to end up somewhere totally different, like down in Georgia." And I love this metaphor because he's talking about how we have to aim above our desired state. And he uses this metaphor for how we guide others. And I think it's one of the most beautiful descriptions of what we do as coaches, teachers, parents, even friends. Because our job isn't to reflect on who someone is right now. It's to hold the highest version of them, even when they can't see it yet. Our role is to expect the best, to aim higher. Because when we hold that version with love and certainty, we actually help pull them towards it. And that applies to everyone in our life, like more than just my clients. It applies to our kids, our partners, our coworkers, and especially to ourselves. Because here's the thing, if we only expect what we've ever seen, we just keep landing in the same place. If we keep aiming for just okay, we're going to end up like below that. So we need to aim for the very, very highest version of ourselves. And when we start holding that aligned version of who we truly are, we give life something bigger to like organize into, to kind of fill in around. I hope that's making sense. I know it can be a little abstract, but let me ask you, where in your life have you been expecting things to go wrong? Or even, where in your life have you been expecting things to stay the same? Where have you been mentally rehearsing failure, disappointment, or just more of the same, whether it's about yourself or someone you love? I know this is a big one for our kids, especially when our kids get into their teens and maybe they have attitude. It's so easy for us to just expect them to show up with that attitude instead of expecting them to show up the best version of themselves. So why don't you ask yourself that? Ask yourself where you've been doing this. And then what if just for this week, you picked one area of your life or one situation in your life? It could be a tough conversation. It could be your partner. It could be your child, your business, your body. And instead of bracing from what might go wrong, or instead of focusing on what you're currently experiencing, what if you imagined and rehearsed the best case scenario, your ideal scenario, your dream scenario? And when I say rehearse it, I'm not talking about just thinking about it. I mean, really feeling it, experiencing it all throughout your body. This is what I call a somatic activation. And it's a method I teach inside of my neurosomatic manifesting course. And it's not just about thinking or mindset, it's about embodiment. It's about training your nervous system to expect good things and training it to receive them, to create them. So take a moment and just imagine it. If you experience the best case scenario, what would it feel like? What would the expression be on your face? What sensations would you notice in your body? What words would be being said? What would the air smell like? What would the ground feel like beneath your feet? We want to rehearse the whole thing because here's the truth. Your brain, it doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So when you start showing up in alignment with your future self, reality starts to shift to meet you. It's very, very magical. And I know it sounds woo woo, but it's actually pretty scientific because rehearsing the current reality doesn't prepare you. It just drains your energy and it keeps you in a cycle that you're ready to outgrow. And when you shift to expecting the best and rehearsing that, you stop becoming a bystander and you start becoming the creator of your life because your thoughts aren't just fleeting. They're not meaningless. They're powerful. They create patterns in your brain. They create responses in your body. They create a vibration and a momentum inside your reality. And when you start using your thoughts intentionally, when you start directing them instead of just reacting to what happens around you, then things really start to change and life really starts to be fun. And real quick along this line, I just want to share something personal real quick. I recently started therapy again because there's a lot going on in our world right now. Let's be honest, I love having an uninterrupted audience for my thoughts. So during my first session, my therapist wanted to do a intake and a background and all that stuff. And she started asking me about my trauma history. And I had to pause and say, I'm not willing to go there. That's not what I want to focus on because I don't want to rehearse that story anymore. Not because I pretend the past didn't happen or pretend trauma didn't happen. Like I'm a trauma-informed somatic coach. I have extensive training in trauma. I have extensive experience in trauma. So I know how it lives in the brain. I know how it lives in the body. But here's the thing. I come to therapy because I want to move forward. And I'm sharing this because I think it's important because I know how easy it is, even in healing spaces, to get pulled back into rehearsing the old version of yourself or telling the old story or going through the details of what happened. And I'm not saying that that's not important. I've done that work in the past in therapy, so I don't need to rehash it again. But very often in therapeutic settings, people can get stuck there for years and years, like just rehashing the same old thing over and over, which is very, very different from coaching where we're taking a future focus. And so sometimes you will see that in a therapeutic setting. Sometimes it's the people around you, right? The ones who have known you at maybe your not so greatest moments. Family, old friends, or people who still expect you to show up as a version of you that they've always known. But just because someone else is stuck in your past doesn't mean that you have to stay there with them. Because at some point, we have to stop looking at the circumstances around us and we have to stop looking in the rearview mirror and we have to start creating what's next. So, this week, love, I want you to pick one story, one situation, one part of your life, and start rehearsing the best case scenario. Let's create space for that. Let's create from that place. Okay, love, if this episode spoke to you, if you resonated with anything, let me know. Leave a review, send me a DM, or share it with a friend. And love, if you are ready to go deeper into your body, into your energy, into your next level identity, then I want to invite you to something brand new. I have a brand new 12-week one-on-one personalized transformation program. This is not a course. It's not a group. It's just you and me working privately side by side. And in this, I get to hold the highest version of you, even on the days when you can't quite see her yourself, because that's what this work is really about. It's about becoming the version of you who no longer rehearses the past, but lives, breathes, and completely creates the future that she's made for. So I only have 10 spots available for this because, again, it's a deep dive. It's one-on-one work. We're working together for 12 full weeks. And I created it so that it's intentionally designed for the woman who's really ready to step into her next level change. I'm going to put all the details in show notes, and you can also reach out to me directly. Or if you want to set up a time to see if this is right for you, then there's also a link in the show notes for that. You can jump on a Zoom, say hi, and see if this is a good fit for you. All right, love. I hope you enjoy the episode. And until next week, keep manifesting an epic life.